Hello, everyone. We welcome you to an episode of Idaho STEM Family and Career Awareness. Today we are with Holly Clark, who will tell us a little bit more about what happens here and what you do daily.
Okay.
What does your department do, and how do you help the city?
Okay, so I work for the City of Nampa's Wastewater Quality Lab. I'm a lab technician there, and we do all of the testing that is required by the EPA permit for wastewater discharge into Indian Creek. So we do a series of water quality tests analyzing for everything from ammonia and phosphorus to total suspended solids and E. coli.
My goodness, I had no idea. The other thing is, what type of science do you use when working with the water, and what basic understanding do you need as far as specific technologies and the different areas that STEM involves?
Okay, so I would say the majority of our work involves aquatic chemistry. So we do a lot of chemistry, and as a broad realm, I would say environmental science is a kind of an overarching aspect of this. So how does our water quality impact the rest of the ecosystems in our community? Specifically, we do a lot of specific tests regarding elements like phosphorus and components with that. We have machines that we use to analyze for those specific analytes in our wastewater, and each machine is calibrated to pick up different concentrations of that element that we're searching for.
And so with all of that, what kind of things do you use with regards to math, and how is it that you can determine where perhaps a certain locale might be creating more of the phosphates and ammonia and things of that sort?
Okay,
Is there any way to trace that back?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I know the city utilizes GIS technology quite a bit. And so when we have a specific analyte that is contaminating, say, our local riparian ecosystem here, such as Indian Creek, all of the storm drains and the pipes that are associated with our wastewater treatment plant are mapped out in GIS, which stands for Geographic Information Sciences. And that technology provides the maps, and they can pinpoint exactly where certain contaminants are actually happening in our community. Mm-hmm. It's very interdisciplinary. So if we have a phosphorus loading that is happening at a specific industry that is in our community, then we know that we can trace that back to where we are seeing the results in our plant.
What inspired you to this wonderful field?
I've had an interest in environmental science since I was a kid, specifically water quality. I grew up in Los Angeles County, where water is extremely scarce and very precious. I mean, water's precious anywhere, but you especially recognize it as being valuable when you don't have a lot of it. And so the water shortage down there inspired me to go to school and study environmental science, specifically water quality, to learn how I can make a positive impact on the industry and learn more about this resource.
If you are a child who is just beginning to have that same interest as you have, what would you suggest that they do as a child to begin their pursuit?
I would say always continue to be curious and take whatever science and technology classes you can. The classes that I took that I would say I use the most frequently, we'd use a lot of chemistry and math. I took several engineering courses in my undergraduate career. And I would also encourage kids to become very active in their community with their extracurriculars, whether that's sports. Specifically for me, that was music. Exercising the other side of your brain, so to speak, to build a community in more than just science, because it is interdisciplinary. And a lot of the skills that you use in your extracurriculars are going to be used in the scientific field. So teamwork, learning how to take criticism, how to give criticism responsibly and respectfully. Those are all tools that, we use every day in our workplace.
That's very interesting, and it's also true, because there are many areas where you might be questioned or where you have to pose questions to other people.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest surprise during your career?
I would say the absolute variety that a degree in science can contribute to. So for me, it's environmental science. That's my undergraduate degree. And there is so much that can be done with that. There are so many different fields that contribute to one another. And the amount of people that you will always find somebody that can contribute to science in your workplace in this field. There's always going to be somebody else with a different perspective. And it's impossible to quantify it all. So it's always surprising just to have those surprises, if that makes sense.
Yes.
There's lots of different people that can contribute and have different viewpoints. And it's just such a wide field. It's all interconnected.
So it's good to also know how to work with people.
Absolutely.
And to be willing to listen to their ideas.
Yes.
And go back and forth with that.
Yeah.
So what's the most important thing that you hope people learn from your department, about your department, and what can kids do to help with the environment?
I think it's important to recognize the relationship that the community has with its water, to not only recognize it and acknowledge it, but to understand that the choices that they make every day do impact this resource as a whole. Specifically here, we deal with wastewater, and so water coming from our septic systems, but the other departments, stormwater, making sure that they're not dumping pollutants down the drain, using water sparingly, only use what is needed, and then to also understand that they can have a positive impact on it. So if a change seems super small and it's not going to make a big deal, that's the problem right there, is that we can all make small changes in our day-to-day life, and it will contribute at a greater scale if everybody does it properly.
Okay. Are there any closing words that you might want to share with the children and their families who will be viewing this?
Foster your child's interest in science. Please do. It's incredibly important. And if they're showing an interest, then I would encourage you to allow that child to explore that interest.
Very good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Today we are with Jordon Trevino, who will be talking to us about health concerns with regards to water and the testing that she does to make certain that everything we enjoy daily and sometimes take for granted. So why don't you tell us about your department and what it is that you do that is different from what other departments do while you're still within the same division?
So I am in the wastewater lab. I'm a lab technician for the city. I originally came from a healthcare background, so I recently started doing this not too long ago, and it was very interesting to see the different pollutants that we get into the water and how we can take those pollutants out to better the overall health for our environment, for our fish, and for just our community in general.
So what would you do? You talk about removing pollutants. What would you do in the lab to do that, and then how does it get transferred to our waterways?
So every day we get our normal wastewater, and we also have major industries around us that are the big factories that do pollutants into the water every single day. Mm-hmm. So we test their water every single day, as well as the city of what's coming into the city.
Okay.
We test those waters to see if they're within their guidelines of our EPA permits. And we make sure that we test what's coming in and then what leaves our system. So we'll see how much levels we have of the total phos, the ammonias, things like that, the E. coli's, and we will test it to see what leaves the plant to make sure that whatever we're getting in is significantly less. So that way we know that it is not going to harm any of the downstream or any of the animals or any of the ecology life.
Okay, so then in your lab, would you use like microscopes, or do you have special testing, or?
We have a lot of different technology that we use. There's a thing called a spectrometer that we use, and that just measures the light bouncing off of the different pollutants that we test. So we have that. We're about to be getting an FIA machine that will help with our ammonias, and that we used all kinds of different probes and temperature gauges that we calibrate every single day. We have DO probes seeing what's taking up the oxygen. So we use all kinds of things to see what variables and what bacteria is growing in the water and how much the pollutants are killing the good bacteria to keep the good bugs alive in the river, because we want the fish to be happy and eat those. So we gotta keep them healthy.
When in your childhood did you kind of go, I might like to do this?
So my mom was actually somebody who went to college late. So I got to see, whenever I was in elementary school, my mom was getting her environmental science degree.
Oh my.
So it was really fun. She would take me along to all of the events they would do. So I helped my mom do all kinds of events through BSU for their college, and anytime that they had an environmental event, I was there to help out. So I got to help tote the recycling along and do the watershed programs and things like that. So it was really fun, and I really liked it.
So you stuck with it?
Yep, so I came with it.
So mom was your inspiration.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what other things would you think that children should do while they're in school to have that same kind of interest? You had your mom. What would you suggest that children do?
I suggest ask a lot of questions. because a lot of adults think that they know what's going on too, but just like kids, a lot of people don't know. So throwing that education out there and throwing that curiosity into the adults and teachers makes them wonder too. So then they reach out as well. And then that's when they can get their resources and learn. So that way it betters an entire community. So definitely volunteering, and like you see the watersheds, those are free to do every year, and to go and be a part and making sure that you're cleaning up all of your litter and not wasting and just putting yourself out there and asking any question you possibly can.
So do you give tours here so that children can be better acclimated to what's going on?
If they request it, yes, we do tours.
Groups, or just maybe like a family?
We do groups and individuals want to come. We do schools and stuff.
Just call ahead and
call ahead and schedule it up so that way we can make sure all the kids are safe.
Sure, yes, of course. As a community, what would you suggest to families and our community to do their part to keep things?
So anything that you flush down the drains or anything that you put down your sinks will come to us, and anything that you put in your storm drains. So I would recommend not using so many chemicals in your front yard, like being careful of what you're throwing down your drains, because that all comes right back to us. And then to be cautious of what your kids are flushing down the toilets. We see all kinds of crazy things that come through that are not meant to be flushed down and that can be harmful.
Are you talking like toy trucks?
Toys, so many toys. We get
Oh,
pictures,
really?
we get,
Oh my.
yes, things that are not supposed to be flushed down. And that means that makes our job to where we have to make sure all of those pollutants are taken out ahead of time before we can even clean the water.
And how are you able to do that?
We have these big, they're called screw pumps, and they pull the water up and they go on the screens and they shimmy up all of the stuff that can't be degraded into the water. So it's a lot of things like baby wipes cannot be flushed down the toilets because they don't degrade in the water. So it means that we are making more waste for the landfills doing this.
So is this screen like
like
this?
It's
and
a
then
big screen, and it
builds up?
it's on a little conveyor belt, and so it just comes, and we have to do it every single day.
I'll be
And clean off the conveyor belts.
kind of like the witch's hat then.
Yes,
But yet
exactly.
another way of getting the job done.
Yep.
Interesting. Very, very I would have never guessed. So how long does it take for water that has been polluted in some fashion to be returned?
Whenever we get water into our system, it takes several days to process the water to make sure it's clean and filled with all the proper good bacteria and bugs that we need.
Sure.
So it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 days before that water is returned into Indian Creek. But it's always healthier, and we always have a lot of healthy fish and ducks that are so excited that they have a bunch of food.
We're here.
Yes.
We found it. We are here today with Amy Reynolds, who works with environmental compliance, and she will have many things to share with us regarding the things that they watch for and the things that they do for our city. What do you do in a kind of a nutshell for environmental compliance? What are the things that you're looking for and the things that you do in a typical day?
So for me, I'm the Public Outreach Assistant for Environmental Compliance Division. I kind of do an outreach program for saying what our technicians and our inspectors do. So on a normal day, they go out and they're making sure that construction sites and any sort of site that is moving some sort of soil or water, they're complying with our permit, which means they can't be dumping anything that could damage our waterway systems over here in our area.
So moving even soil, would this be like maybe people who live along a canal, one of our waterways, and the things that they might be doing that could harm that waterway? Is that the type of thing you're talking about with soil?
So it's not just along the waterways, it's going to be anywhere where we have a storm drain implemented into like neighborhoods or any type of business area. We're wanting to make sure that anything that is going to be near the storm drains that can maybe be accidentally washed down or through rainwater, sprinkler systems, that there's not going to be excess sediment, leaf litter, any type of pollutants like tar that they use to paint around foundations in a lot of homes.
Oh, okay. So when walking downtown, I've noticed that some of the, I guess they're called the gutters and then the receptacle, that they're closed. For what reason is that? Is that to avoid water going where it shouldn't go, or what?
So our inspectors implement a system, they're called witches hats. So they're essentially a giant like netted material that goes inside the storm drains, and those are trying to block out heavy sediments, any type of garbage, and when they're filled up, they have to get taken out with a crane.
So they're kind of shaped like a funnel?
Yes.
Which is why they're called how
witch's
clever
hat.
is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually collecting those things that you do not want in that system.
Exactly.
All right. So what sort of sciences do you use during your everyday job? And what is part of your purpose as an outreach? What are your goals?
So a lot of our inspectors and technicians, they're using hydrology, geology, any type of science that is involving earth and water and weather, because some of our technicians will have to take rainwater samples so they can see how much rainwater is getting sent down into the systems if we do have our heavy flood periods. And my role over at Environmental Compliance Division is to make sure that the community is aware of certain changes that go along with our new permit that's coming up, and making sure that people, not just people in our like science community, but also our business owners, our schools, any type of community member is aware of how what we put down into our storm drains, it goes right back into the river system, and it's not being filtrated as much besides the witches hats. So we want to make sure that we stop it at the source point, and we're not allowing pollutants to go down into our river system.
How are you able to detect where that contaminating source might be?
Sometimes we'll get a call if we hear someone having a complaint about excess soil that's been moved into the roads during construction areas. And so part of that is people who do construction projects, they have to purchase a permit with the city so that they know what is expected of them and how they're supposed to keep their area clean. So that could involve using hose systems to water down soil during the summer months when it's really dry, or making sure they're sweeping up any excess sediment, or they have to create a sort of trench on some construction sites. So that way, if there is some sort of contamination, it's going down into the soil. And that way, instead of it just going directly down into our waters, it's having a chance to infiltrate first, which kind of is like a natural filtration process.
So what can children do as far as helping you with your job while they're out with their families?
A big part of my job is being able to go to schools and do these types of outreach lessons for children, and having them take more care. Like Halloween's coming up, and there may or may not be a bunch of candy wrappers, trying to make sure that any trash that we produce is going into the garbage. It's not getting thrown on the ground where animals may eat, or it could go down into our waterway system. So I think having people start early with that sort of mentality, that muscle memory, so that way they know how things operate in our river system, our water systems, to make sure that it's going to be cleaner and a higher water quality in the future.
So schools, and as you know, our wonderful library has had the pleasure of your programs. Do schools call and contact you, or what's the best way to take advantage of all that you have to offer?
So schools are more than welcome to contact us over at ECD. I'm currently working on developing programs so that the teachers, if they would like to obtain free teaching materials, where I am working on that, so that they can come to me or the department, pick up a packet with certain activities and lessons that primarily focus around storm water and stormwater quality. And I'm hoping that in the future, this type of program will really help the teachers who don't quite feel so confident teaching these activities, or maybe they just need more activities, because sometimes it's really hard to just look through the internet and try to find something you like want to teach. So I think having it already prepared and something that they can check out as part of our public education outreach, I think it will be really beneficial.
So you're going to have kind of water on wheels, where the teachers can come in and actually just pick up and go,
Yeah.
take it back and use it.
That's what I'm hoping.
That's wonderful, because you're right, there's so much out there, and also what they would get from you would be tried and tested, and you would know ahead of time that they can do that in the classroom. That's a wonderful thing that you're doing. What is the best thing working for the city that you have discovered? What is it that you feel like this is a wow moment? I'm making a difference.
So working with the city is very fresh for me. I just started last Monday. So I'm very excited to kind of meet more community members and have the freedom to develop the program to make sure that it's really helping the communities. I know it's primarily focused on helping schools, and I can't wait to develop that more, but also having outreach classes for community businesses so they know what they can and can't dump down drains. So that way we're not just reaching students and children, but also adult community members who may just didn't realize or just didn't have that education in the past. Now that we're kind of implementing more of the programs, that I want to make sure everyone has that opportunity.
Well, I must say that at the library, it's always been wonderful because the kids are there with their families, their parents or caregiver, and they're able to say, see, and then as a family, they're, joined, and they go forth with that same purpose.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your day, or what sort of education or classes kids should take when they're just beginning?
I think kids should really focus on taking a lot of math and a lot of science early on, and don't ever be discouraged if you can't figure out something right away, because a lot of science is trial and error and trying to find the best way to do something. Nothing was perfect as soon as the beginning, and I think having that sort of hopeful feeling as you move forth with your education is to just know that you're not going to learn everything all at once. And it's amazing. I'm still learning. I love trying to figure out new things that environmental studies can offer. And I just hope that kids in the future go forth.
Yes. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in the library, that's for certain.
Yeah.
So thank you, Amy, for your time today and all that you have shared with us.